So namaste. Namaste, everyone. After a rather long pause from speaking with my viewers, my apologies. Bal Ganesh Hiramba, my baby, he is still very, very attached to me. In fact, yesterday was the first time that we were apart for, I think it was an hour and a half. So since he's been born, that was the first time. And we're apart right now. So we'll see how it goes. Yes, it can be quite challenging, having a social media account when you are a young mother, especially because in the UK here, I don't have any family around. We have no help at home. And I'm sure Rituji, my very esteemed guest here, she would agree that there are many benefits to living in a joint family. I've seen, I've been reading articles, I've seen tweets about how it's beneficial for everyone in the whole family, for the baby, for their development, for their linguistic development, to hear lots of different voices around them, for the young mum, for their mental health. It is the best thing, again, to have support and structure around you. So yes, apologies. I will try my very best to put out more videos in future. But we'll start just today's discussion. So we have my esteemed guest Rituji here with me. Namaste Rituji, Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram. Dr. Melissa, how are you doing?
मैं बहुत ठीक हूँ, आप कैसे हैं?
बिल्कुल बहुत अच्छे, भगवान श्री राम की कृपा है, सब बहुत अच्छा है यहाँ पर.
Perfect. So yes, just one little notice. One of the things I have been doing the last few months is really, focusing down on learning Hindi. I'm still not confident enough to speak it too much, certainly in front of an audience, but getting somewhere. That's just an aside. Okay, so Ritu, thank you again for joining me today. So one of the reasons why I was really keen to invite you onto my show is because when we previously spoke together, this was on Neeraj Atriji's channel a couple of years ago, I was really inspired by how you introduced yourself. Because many people, in this space, people who speak on these sorts of panels about Hindu issues, that is, of course, a fantastic doing, and they should be very proud and describe themselves as doing such. But you actually started your introduction in a very different way. So I'm wondering, do you mind just repeating that for me? Because I found that really inspiring, as I said, as a young mother.
So namaste everybody. My first introduction is that I'm a mother. I'm a mother of 2 kids, and nothing gives me more power. Nothing empowers me more than having this feeling that I'm a mother. I'm a nourisher. I'm somebody who nourishes them. I am there for my kids when my kids come and ask me that, "Mom, we are hungry." It empowers me because I know I have this feeling. These kids know that it is their mother who will feed them. It is their mother who will nourish them. So the power I draw from being a mother, I feel this is my first introduction. Other than that, I am a wife, I'm a daughter, and then I'm an entrepreneur. I run my own small IT firm. And other than that, I'm a Hindu activist. I feel that, it's time if my generation will not contribute for the civilizational renaissance in whatever way, even if in a thought, then who else will? Our future is going to be very dark if our today people will not contribute for it. And I, being a mother, is the primary reason what drives me to do this work. Because when I look at my kids, I look into their future and the future of their kids. And that's what inspires me to be doing what I am doing today. That's why I always feel that it is being a motherhood has empowered me and inspired me into things which I never thought I would ever do.
Fantastic. Well, you inspire me, Rituji.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you. So when you were just describing there your different relationships and the focus there of being a mother, thank you very much for that. You also mentioned being a daughter. So I wanted to give you the platform here to set the record straight, put the facts out, and describe how, importantly, how it helped to shape you and your Hindu activism?
So, Dr. Melissa, when I was here on Twitter, my journey on Twitter actually started though I joined Twitter in 2010, but I was not active. I only became active in about 2013, late 2013, but also because we were so inspired with Modi ji, and we were so looking forward to him becoming the Prime Minister of this country. So it is during those days only that, and actually I did not start my activism through Twitter. I started on ground level. Few of us friends collected, and we started doing something called Namo tea parties. We would organize chai parties, tea parties. We would tell people why they should vote for Modi ji, and for about 8, 9 months. And then we also got support of some BJP leaders into doing this. And for about 7, 8 months, we worked on ground. We traveled to different parts of India and we organized these tea parties. And our only objective was that, Modi ji should be the Prime Minister of this country. And once he won, that's when, the ground activities, we came to Twitter and we thought now we need to support him, But then as gradually we started to study, move forward, we realized that, specifically with me, I realized, as my own evolution was taking place, that, what things we were expecting are not happening. Not even 1% of what we expected is happening, So if it doesn't happen now, when does it happen? And the biggest disappointment was, the education. When it was said that we did not even change comma in the history books or in the education books was the biggest disappointment for me because I truly believe, and it's a fact, that it's education which makes a civilization or it fails the civilization. So if education is not in your control, we are looking staring at a disaster. So of course I am being my father's daughter, being my mother's daughter, who they were, really influenced me to be who I am. And the connection now goes back to my father. My father was very proud, very good, very intelligent army officer. He was doing very well. And all of a sudden, he was called to Delhi in 1979. I was a very little girl at that time, having very hazy memories of what happened. And all of a sudden, my father is gone. We don't know where he is. My mother is asked to vacate the house. We were posted in Kamti at that time in near Nagpur, and we don't know where her father is. Then my Mamaji, that's my mother's elder brother, was also in army. He came and picked us up. We had to vacate the house. He took us with us to Dehradun. My mother didn't know where my father is. She would just get, when she would say that she doesn't have money, she would she got a check signed by my father. That's all. That's the only communication that my mother had in those 8, 9 months. And so I'm going to give you a little brief so you people know, it's not that I am going to play victim, but it's a little, whatever uh, the pain we went through in a childhood really helped me shape who I am. So when I went there, for me, I'm with, being a little girl, I'm witnessing all this, though I don't know what's going on. But still, I remember my mother's faces. She would cry, and everybody consoling her. So then my mother reading one day that my father has been shot dead. Then when she moved to the Supreme Court, she said my husband be produced. And then I remember when we went to meet my father. My father was just a skeleton. So badly was he tortured for 8, 9 months. And then the story begins. My father, because at that time he was court-martialed, sent to jail, sentenced to 14 years of jail. Then a tale, a story of cute hardship. So we had no money. My mother had no money. My mother, they did not have any support system. She didn't know what to do. So in Delhi, we stayed in a chawl in one small room that was rented. Some of my relatives, my father's stepsister, she helped us. She gave us one room. We stayed there. My mother started teaching tuitions. And so such was her integrity and honesty that she would not take money from anybody except that the money that she worked hard. She earned herself through teaching tuition. And so I saw her struggling, looking after my father, fighting court cases, making sure she and her she's growing up with two daughters with all integrity and honesty, making sure their education is taken care of. So growing up, as I started reading more, I started understanding. I understood, even after all the torture, how my father did not, relent to the people, to the whole conspiracy. He took the torture, he took everything, but he did not relent. And he Uh, so that rebellious nature that my father is, that to stay with honesty and truth, whatever happens in life, and that's what exactly he. Whenever we would meet him, this is exactly what my parents have always. These are the values they've instilled in us, irrespective of who is in front. Walk the path of truth, always seek truth and righteousness. And that's all I've learned. And I think that's primarily my characteristic, which is that's exactly what I have been shaped into. That I will always stand against the wrong. I cannot clap for something wrong. If I am seeing that some wrong is happening, I will call it out. That's how I have been wired to be the person who I am. So I think to bring my, and it's not, I'm very proud of my parents. My father did so well, when he was in jail. I must say this, I must tell this story. When he was in jail, my father worked with the juveniles in Tihar. He was lodged in Tihar jail. He worked with the juveniles, and so good was his work. He mentored so many lives. Otherwise, people, when they go to jail, they become psychos, they become corrupt. But look at this man, so strong was his character that he influenced thousands of lives. Even those children, they are doing well now. They come and they touch my father's feet and they thank you. They say thanks to him. The jailers, the superintendents, they have written books and they have mentioned the high character of my father. And they say that we were so impressed with this man, in fact, and he was very well educated, so they would all get their letters and everything also drafted from him and pay him money, so that money also helped in our education. So that's how our parents have brought us up. And so his term from 14 years was shortened to 10 years because of the great work he did inside the jail. And then that was another story of struggle my parents had to start off with. When they came out, they had no resources, nothing, just that again one room and my mother's tuition. Then, but because my father again, God also had to help. He got a small job of 3,000 rupees. Then he came out. With that little savings, struggles, they started their own small security business. And with time, that picked up. Both my parents are working very hard for that. And then, with time, as I was growing up, I saw them. We were helping them out also, and then things became better for us. God's grace was there with us, and we all, for me, in spite of what has happened with us, we only got respect in the society, and that respect was primarily coming because of the character of my parents. So for me, when I was here on Twitter, on social media, it was the first time I actually experienced hate for my parents. I was so shocked that never in the life we ever experienced that. In fact, the media that we today so much abuse because we think it is anti-Hindu, the same media, I must confess, be it Shekhar Gupta, be it Kumi Kapoorji, be it so many all the other reporters, they have reported my father's case. They have written articles. They have told how false this case has been. They have stood by our family. They have visited us regularly. Yet when I found wrong to be on the wrong side, I have abused them and accused them because I felt that they are wrong. Just because this is how I am to be. If they are wrong, even if they have helped us, even if they have been with us, if they are harming my culture, my society, my dharma, my civilization, I'm going to call them out. So for me, it was a very painful experience that these are the people who I supposed to be my own people, right wingers, Hindus, and because I am critical of the Prime Minister and his policies, because they are anti-Hindu policies, I feel, and I see my criticism. I never abuse. I have never written abusive language. I have never been crossed that line. My none of my tweets, you can say that I'm abusive. My questions, my views, and it's my right. I live in a democratic country. I am my Supreme Court's law give me this freedom of expression that I can speak and question. But this attitude of ganging up like hyenas, trying to abuse me using my father, I think even the lowest of creature will not do this. Even if you want to attack me, I think there's enough things you can do me personally at one to one, or you can argue or you can have a debate. But getting my father involved and using him as a bait to come on to me, they thought they'll be able to question me. But I am not born like that. I'm not made up like that. I'm a daughter of two fighters. And so I decided. I'm going to take these people, enough of it. And that's when I decided I will not take this lying down and I'm going to seek court help into this. And I went and I got my lawyer, Raghav Avasti, got me an injunction into this. And I'm happy that courts are they still see through what, the truth should be. And the cyberbullying coming from Modi supporters was truly shocking to me. Truly shocking. But I hope, they stop this nonsense. This is very harmful for the Prime Minister's image as well. Let me tell you, this only brings more hostility in people, in people's heart. So this kind of thing that we so abhorred during the Congress regime, because same thing they would do. Anybody criticizing Congress leadership, they would gang up and they would abuse, and we are seeing the same culture, maybe worse, happening now. So this is the story, Dr. Melissa. So this is it. And thank you so much that you gave me this platform to speak this out, because this needed to be spoken out. So I have written about it. And I'm glad I spoke about it today as well. So for the last time, to all abusers and haters, I'm very proud of my parents. I'm very, very proud of my father, who he is. And I'm a very proud daughter of Captain R.S. Rathaur and Mrs. Varun Rathaur. And I will continue to be that. And I will continue to speak my mind, my tongue, and none of you, anything that you do, abuse me or anything, can stop me. So you can take this as a word, or you can still be yourself, and I will make sure that I will use whatever I have in to stop this cyberbullying.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ritu. And absolutely, you should be so proud of your parents. And, listen to you talk just then, I can feel the full force of Shakti behind what you are saying. I find you truly inspirational. So I can see a good number of people are watching. So namaste. Thank you for joining, everyone. While you are here, if you wouldn't mind, please liking the video, subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, following both myself and Ritu on Twitter. Ritu, would you mind just reminding everyone what your handle is on Twitter?
So my handle is @Ritu, R-I-T-U, Rathaur, R-A-T-H-A-U-R. That's how I go, Ritu Rathaur.
Thank you. So Jai Shri Ram, everyone, thank you for joining. So thank you, Ritu. That was a really heartfelt, I could really feel the emotion behind what you were just describing about your childhood and the adversity you face, and how that adversity actually has helped shape you and given you the passion as well as a clarity of thought. So I'm wondering if another angle of your life might have helped bring about this clarity that I really admire you for in what you write on Twitter. And that is, I believe, did you live in the US for a period? Is that right? So you lived abroad for some time?
I have traveled to the US quite often, but I've never lived there. I mean, I've lived there for about 2-3 months.
Oh, okay. All right. Because I wondered if perhaps, many people who, Indians who live abroad, that actually gives them the space to see things more clearly, in my opinion, because they're not perhaps engrossed within the same sort of thinking day in, day out. They get to observe from afar. So, I mean, maybe you might want to reflect on why you feel it is, what is the root cause for that sort of blindness that many Hindus have when it comes to, from the work I do, it's, understanding that, or acknowledging that there is a Hindu genocide. But then there are other aspects to just discrimination in terms of policy and, the different discrimination that happens in India, for example, recently during the riots or on Ram Navami, all these different occasions where people are turning a blind eye, or they are trying to excuse it or justify it. So what do you consider to be the root cause of that blindness? Is it, the education system? Is it a lack of courage? The Kshatriya bhav has disappeared. Is it that people are in this sort of groupthink where everyone is kind of echoing what everyone else is thinking? So whoever is at the center, in the media, putting out these messages, it's just reverberating through the society, and the critical thinking ability has disappeared. What do you believe is the root cause of this?
So, Dr. Melissa, of course, the root cause of this is education itself. The Hindu society has been uprooted, completely uprooted from their roots, their religious roots. So, tell me, Dr. Melissa, from 75 years, last 75 years, what our kids are reading. So, there is a river, it has a source. So, if Hinduism, let's considering Hinduism to be a religion. Of course, it is a religion. It's a great religion. It's a dharma. So we also have, it's a river. So we also have a source. So what is our source? Our source is our scriptures. Our source is our Vedas. Our source is our Ramayana, Mahabharata, or Upanishad. All our texts, all our darshans are our source. That's where the knowledge is flowing from. The knowledge of the dharma is flowing from. Now, for the last 75 years, generation probably we are the seventh or the eighth generation post independence. So the river has been cut off from its roots. They do not study their religious text. They do not know what Hinduism is all about. So one generation after the other, the source is completely cut off. So what is going to happen to the river? River is going to get dry. That knowledge system, there is a there is a break. It's not being passed on anymore, except the few people, who are the lucky ones are still receiving it. But through the formal education, it has been completely stopped. So what's going to happen? Dr. Melissa, I must give you some examples. I was recently speaking you because you spoke about US, and it has not all my growing up. I have witnessed this that forget accepting Hindu genocide. Hindus cannot even proudly say I'm a proud Hindu. To even say that I'm a Hindu, they really have to struggle so hard. And a recent example, one of my clients, he's from US, Indian, staying there, living there. I was working with him, and then Navratras were going on just recently, and I was fasting. So I asked him, I said, oh, it's Navratras. Hope you are at least fasting, if not, all first or second Navratras. Then he is saying, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, so when I do puja, it's for spirituality. And I'm like, hello, I had to, I sat down, I said, I'm sorry, you're my client, but I'm still going to have a talk with you, one-to-one talk with him. And then, I told him, why can't you say you are a proud Hindu, or, even you are also religious minded? Why do you have to hide behind the veil of spirituality to say that, you do puja? You do puja, even for religious reasons. What's wrong about it? And I'm like, he went completely silent and quiet, almost shivering, probably that, this is like some kind of a crime to do puja or to say I'm a proud Hindu. So Hindus have actually come down to this level, this position that they feel so ashamed. Now, ask me. And then what happened? This incident, my son, who's in class 12 right now, so he discusses things with me, and he was telling me that how his English teacher, who happens to be a Bengali, uh, how she brainwashes kids in the class when she will bring about topics like discrimination, feminism, and how Hinduism, the caste system in Hinduism, has been, so discriminatory, and how it has subjugated Dalits and Shudras. So how the teachers systematically filling our kids with the guilt of being who they are. Now, luckily, because he's my son, and I happen to have already, made sure that, that from when since their childhood, I've been grooming. My daughter is 10. So I have groomed them already that this is what you're going to be learning in school, but just learn it for the sake of, this thing. But, still look at the power that he comes, and he then comes and he says, but Mama, isn't teacher right when she speaks like this? So I have to counter him with very logics and facts and tell him that no, there is another perspective, and this is how one needs to see it. So he says, Mama, I'm lucky that I have you, but what about all the other kids who are in the class whose parents probably cannot talk or explain like you do? And I said, yes, you were right. And that's a big worry for us. So these issues, where Hindus are not able to say Hindu genocide, or they talk all the shit of secularism, or they are not even able to accept who they are. This is because of what education is doing to them. The template of this Abrahamic education in India is so dangerous that it is going to completely annihilate the last remaining remnants of the civilization as well if nothing is done on board footing. And this is where my real worry is, Dr. if education is not taken back into control, we are a dead civilization. We are going to meet our end very soon. It's just a matter of time. So education and education is where we need to work on. This is the core of our every problem. The day our kids start learning Ramayana, the day our kids learning Mahabharata, their minds will get re-Hindu. I hope I have answered your question
Yes.
satisfactorily.
Yes, how the education system is systematically deracinating, de-Hindifying, over 1 billion people. It is terrifying.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you bring up the excellent point, though, how you are proactively countering that with this counter grooming. You described it. So maybe we can for a moment. Again, being a young mother, I am very conscious just how much like sponges children are. They really are. My Ganesh Hiramba, he is learning so quickly. And you can imagine if he is surrounded by lies, by anti-Hindu propaganda, by a sense of insecurity, even within the family, of being able to say, I'm a proud Hindu, how that will shape him so easily for the rest of his life. So when I reflect on the times where I have met Hindu parents here in the UK, I can see how this deracination is happening so quickly from one generation to the next, because the parents, they may be visiting the mandir to celebrate Navratri, but their children are outside playing with the chappals. They're not at all being drawn in to understand, to appreciate what Navratri is about. They're being brought along, but then they're outside in the hallway playing with the chappals. I mean, what dharma are they learning from that experience? And that will be children below the ages of 11, for example. Children 12 till, until you see them as young mums, you don't see them at these functions at all, these events at all. I don't know where these teenagers are. They're just completely lost from Hindu Dharma, I imagine. So, I mean, again, speaking to somebody who is, a more established mother than myself, what are the actual concrete steps that you take to be imbibing Hindu Dharma in your children, other than telling them the reality of the anti-Hindu forces around them, opening their eyes to this? So to actually imbibe them in Sanatana, what are the concrete steps that you are taking?
So okay, I started off very simple. I started off with stories of Ramayana. So when my son was little, we would watch that Ramayana movie that by the Japanese director, and he would love that. So that's where. So I would advise you that you should do this with Hiramba, and kids just love that movie. They may not be able to understand it, but then they see the characters fighting, the Hanumanji, they just love it. So that's the first connection I gave my son, my kids to through using animation, using stories, and then I would as with my daughter as well, and as they were growing up, I made sure I took my kids to mandir every week, once a week at least. We go to a temple together. Then I make sure that the evening aarti, my kids sit with me and we do the aarti together. We do the puja at home together. We keep discussing the Puranic stories. I read out Puranic stories with them, and then we discuss, okay, why was this? What are the learnings for us? So we have a family discussion around things. So I try to keep their mind Hinduized. I try to give them the perspectives of Hindu, that okay, Mahabharata, if this happened from the Western, this is how the Western media, Western education would interpret it. But then how would Hinduism would interpret it? We have our own framework of interpreting things. So this is the Hindu way of interpreting. So they talk about equality, and we speak of equity. So I explain them the concept of equity using Mahabharata, Yudhishthir. So this is how I keep their minds thinking. And Dr. Melissa, I must share a story with you. So for their birthdays, we would do yagya. So I remember when I was growing up and I would participate in a yajna or a yagya, I didn't know what's going on. So, and after some point we would be getting a little this thing that why we want to go out with, it's getting too long, we don't want to participate in the yajna. I'm talking about my time. But now, once I started reading on Hinduism, when I understood what yajna, what really happens in a yagya, how we call the devtas, how we invite them, we offer them food, we offer them things, and then they bless us and go. That's where my first connection, my own connection, happened with the yajna. And then for my kids' birthdays, we started doing this, and I started explaining my kids, that what we are doing. So I would tell Panditjis also that you please explain to the kids that what you are doing. You know so when they learned, oh, we are calling all the Devi Devtas, the Indra is coming, the Varun Devta is coming, the Agni is coming, all the planets are coming, and we are now bathing them, offering them flowers and food, and all the chanting that we are doing is to take empowerment. So when my son was turning 13 years, he himself told me, he says, Mom, please make sure the yajna is happening. You're doing the yagya, right? I said, yes. So now every birthday, my kids themselves make sure that are we performing a yagya on their birthdays or not performing a yagya on their birthdays. So I think this is how, these are the little steps. But yes, Dr. Melissa, one thing is also sure. The content our kids are consuming from outside media is very terrifying. So it cannot be a one-time exercise. Every day you need to sit down with your kids and talk about Hinduism, talk about your literature, talk about your shastras, just to counter what they're consuming. You cannot stop what they're consuming. You cannot stop what they are viewing on YouTube. You cannot stop what is Netflix showing them. You cannot stop what their teachers are teaching them. You cannot stop what media is talking about. You cannot stop what movies are showing. You cannot purge those things. They will consume that content. Now, the only way to counter this is not to stop them. No, I don't tell them you don't watch this. I just make sure that I am feeding them my content, the Hindu content from my side. So be it Quranic stories, be it our anything of a literature. Sometimes we would just pick up one mantra from Upanishad, and we'll discuss things around. For example, we'll discuss Om Purnamidam Purnamidam. Okay, this is what does this mean in the metaphysical realms? What could this mean? What does this mean in the spiritual realms? So this is how. And then of course I'm lucky also. My in-laws and my parents, they all stay together. I mean, my parents stay close by, and my father is very dharmic. He's extremely well-read person himself. So he also helps, the kids, both my kids and my younger sister's children. They are learning a lot of things from their grandparents. So this is where the role of a joint family comes in. The learning that they get not from just their parents, but from their grandparents. So this is the continuity. Grandparents to the grandchildren is the continuity which must not break. The knowledge, the wisdom that they carry must pass on to their grandkids. So say my in-laws also. In fact, I must say, all the ritual aspect of Hinduism, my mother-in-law has played a very big role in shaping me and giving that knowledge to me. The ritual. My mother was a devout Hindu, but not very ritualistic. My mother-in-law is very ritualistic, and she's the one who's taught me about the month, how the month happen, what are different days and how different days are important in Hinduism. So I have learned a lot from her, and they also pass on a lot of knowledge to my kids. So this is how we are trying our best, just to feed them the Hindu content.
Fantastic. So some really great tips for me there. Thank you. So one thing that's really struck me is that the Hindu children that I have met, both in the UK and in Bharat, I find them incredibly intelligent. I've really been astounded when they are speaking multiple languages. They are playing Veena. They speak English with vocabulary way beyond the English vocabulary that I have. I am incredibly intelligent. When I look at there are some statistics on how Hindu children in the UK fare in their exams. They are actually the highest achieving minority or group in the UK when it comes to exams up to the age of 11, and then the second highest up to the age of 16. So, excellent academic record. And one of the things that helps shape that, I'm sure, is that Hindu parents apparently in the UK, they spend the most number of hours supporting their children with their homework compared to people of other religions and atheists, for example. And it's not just like a small difference, like almost like 3 times as many hours they all spend. So this is time that they are focusing on educational attainment, but obviously it's not necessarily shaping them up for the best things in life. When you see that many of the people who are living abroad, they are going into endeavors in life that are not supporting Hinduism at all. They have perhaps no grounding in the Shastras, in their ambitions in life. And they are, in all extents, talking often, I find, very illogically. So many of these phrases that we were talking earlier about, spirituality, not religious. Other ones you hear, like all religions are the same. Sort of illogical statements. I find it very difficult to marry that up with, having such high academic achievement. I'm sure in things like maths, where logic is like the center of it, science, logic is the center of this, and yet they are saying such illogical things about themselves. Obviously, there is this shift that occurs within their minds when they are applying logic to their religion, to their culture. So I wondered if you wanted to just, reflect on that point, how there can be such intelligent people saying such unintelligent things sometimes.
Dr. Melissa, it's not about kids just in UK or US. I think this phenomena we are witnessing not about. I think it's a Hindu problem. It's a Hindu issue. Well, as you very rightly said, you actually explained it yourself only so beautifully. Uh, See, education comes to Hindus, it's like in our DNA. It's just not, that it's something, a new phenomena. We have been a very erudite civilization. Look at the kind of work our ancestors, sages have done. Who can write stories even like Ramayana and Mahabharata? My goodness. It's like a loop of stories, especially if you see Mahabharata. Just imagine the thinker, the thought process behind that. The story is a loop after loop after loop, and yet every loop you pick up, the story is a complete story in itself. So such were the great writers. So I feel education has always been a very important part of our civilization, and it has just come into our DNA. So the parents are, so education, like Saraswati Mata, so Saraswati is something that is very important to Hindus, and they make sure their focus is their kids, so always the focus has been education. Get your kids good quality education, except the problem is that the education that they are now receiving is not their dharmic education. What they're reading is actually Abrahamic education. So that's where the disconnect is happening. The continuity of the civilization in terms of reading, writing, studying, working hard continues, but the content is what has changed all these years. So the content that they're consuming is what is shaping them to be who they are. So this nonsense of all religions are same. So of course, education and what has happened to Hindus in the last 300 years, especially the 250 years of colonial rule. What happened to Hindus during that time? What Macaulay did, the content he brought in to the Indian education system, and of course the Englishization of Hindu minds is again, is this. See, we are reading everything in a foreign language. It's not our own language. And linguistics do play a very important role in shaping who you are. The language in which you think or write also is very important in shaping up the person. So tell me why Indians are not becoming scientists, why we are not innovating, why we are not, doing things that the world's best is doing, or what China is doing, or what Israel is doing. See, look at Israel. Israel revived Hebrew, and they made sure their education, all of their education happened in Hebrew in their own language. And look what Israel did to itself in approximately the same time frame that India has been independent. So they went on to become great inventors. The kind of technology Israel has come up with, the kind of scientists, thinkers they are producing is primarily because they are studying in their own language. Same is with the Chinese as well. You know, Look at them. Where are they and where are we? So our colonization with this English language continues, and This is where we are working hard. We are doing very good, but our people are going and becoming CEO of big digital companies, but we don't own an Alibaba. We don't own a Twitter. We don't own an Amazon. We are workers there. We can be CEOs in those companies, but we cannot own those large multinational corporations. This is where I feel we are lacking. So languages, we are losing our languages. We are not studying in our language, and then the content of our education. And then the secular structure, and when I say secular, I mean anti-Hindu structure of our whole Indian state as it is so anti-Hindu. It is that this whole combination has completely de-Hinduized Hindu mind. So guilt-trapped Hindus, they themselves start to teach their children at homes when they're about 4 or 5 years, all religions are same. Without even studying, see, imagine they do this without even studying other religions. At least if you are saying all religions are same, at least pick up the book, pick up Quran, pick up Bible and study it first and then say after studying it whether the religions are same or not. At least I am one of those proud parents who at least made this effort of studying and researching and understood. No, we are not same. Our religion and your religion is not same. We are very different. And I have told this to my kids right from their 5 years old. You're a Hindu and your religion and Islam is not same. You can study it. I'm not saying you don't respect people. You should always respect whoever respects you, you respect back. Whoever doesn't respect you, give it back to him with the same coin. But to say this, we cannot. I think it's a lie. We cannot teach. The foundation of our kids cannot be based on a lie that all religions are the same. I couldn't have done that. So I made sure I tell my children the truth that we are different, and it's okay to be different. There is nothing wrong to be different. So this is where we are lacking, Dr. Malisa. I think the linguistics, the language, the colonialization of the Hindu minds, and then last 75 years, we continue with the Macaulay education, the Abrahamic education template, and that's where it's completely collapsed for us. And I'm really worried here. This is where we really need to do something on the war footing. How to re-Hinduize Hindu minds back should be our only objective right now.
Thank you.
I hope I answered and I was able to clear, though you yourself understand the subject very well, Dr. Malisa, but I hope I just added to what you said.
Absolutely. And in fact, the point about English, this is something that I press upon in every interview that I make as well, how the English language is a major mechanism for deracinating and Abrahamizing Hindus, because it is a language that was evolved to shape the Abrahamic society. So at the same time, it is shaping your brain. There is a study that I always quote, carried out in the US, where they compared two groups of people living in Uttar Pradesh. People who only speak English in very formal occasions, so for example, at an international business meeting, and people who speak it all the time. And they found that the very process of speaking English, it alters your socioeconomic views, your sociopolitical views, the mechanics of English language, the vocabulary you're using. And this isn't just because you're exposed then to the English media, because they accounted for that in the statistics. It's actually the mechanics of the language, the way it wires your brain, essentially.
Absolutely.
It is Hindufying you and Abrahamizing you. Yeah.
So I think China and Israel are great examples in front of us. Even Germany and Japan, how if you want to be innovators, if you want to be scientists, start thinking and reading in your own languages. Let me tell you, the day India has re-Sanskritized itself and re-evolved all its 1600 languages and makes that the medium of learning, trust me, India is going to be the superpower that it really seems to be. Absolutely. We really need to revive back our languages, and our languages can only be revived when we make the medium of study, not just teach it as a language, but make the medium of study as regional languages. So, for example, in Andhra, if you have Telugu, then make Telugu the medium of studying. So you're studying chemistry, physics, mathematics in Telugu. If you're in North, you make Hindi the medium and Sanskritized Hindi, not Urduized Hindi. Make Sanskritized Hindi the medium of learning. Learn everything, and trust me, we are going to have great thinkers, philosophers, innovators, scientists. Everything is going to just turn around completely for us.
Of course. So one interesting point you mentioned earlier is how you take your children to the mandir every week, and you described how the yagna process, you were inviting the devas in. So I'm wondering if you could then reflect on the significance of that when we see that there is so much destruction of mandirs occurring, and it's something that you're reporting on very frequently on social media, destruction of temples left, right, and center in Bharat at the moment. The abodes where we are inviting the devas in. What is it that is so impassionate within you to be telling the truth about this? Why have you got your eyes so open to why this is happening, and many others don't? They see it just as bricks and mortar, that the development is always a good thing. So how come you have your eyes wide open to this, and many others don't, essentially?
Dr. Willis, I think I'm just too much in love with my God, with my civilization, with my dharma, with my temples, and that's why for me they are more important than anything else, and probably that's what inspires me to keep my eyes not only open but speak about it and call it out also. And I think the whole story started with what happened in Kashi, the destruction of temples in Kashi, and there is just I too much of evidence, which cannot be ignored. I mean, it is right there, and now they've also accepted that yes, the temples were broken, but now we have relocated here and there. So the question is that the question is not about the government breaking the temples. Of course, that's a separate issue, and it's a very serious issue that the secular governments even touching our temples. I don't even understand why are they even interfere when they call themselves secular. It basically means that they are religion agnostic and they should keep away from religion. So I don't even understand why they are touching our temples, why they're entering into our temples and making them their own personal fiefdoms. I have no idea about it. That's a separate topic. But yes, the sad part, Dr. Melissa, is that Hindu society is just watching it. They are not resisting it. Is what is really worrying about. Even if you see yesterday's Alvar episode, what happened, the 300-year-old Shiva temple is broken. There was a video, and as the drill machine was working, if I was there, trust me, I would have just sat there holding the shivling and told these people to first kill me and then take the shivling. I couldn't have allowed that to have happened in front of my eyes if I was there. But there were about 100 Hindus standing there and just watching. Now that's what was really, really painful for me. How could they just sit there and watch? Why they didn't go and just wrap themselves around the shivling? Why they did not just lie on the roads and stop these people from doing it? What stopped them? It's very, very dangerous, and I feel it is because Hindus have lost their connection to their God. They have lost that feeling, that spiritual connect, that religious connect. You see, for Hindus, no, my mother always thought that I would ask her all kind of questions. So I asked her, why do we have a small puja room in our house? In our room, we have just one room, and you have made one small room for Bhagwan Ji. Why so, Mama? So she would say that, see, God is also part of our family, and He is the head of our family. So head of a family needs a small room. So now then I realized, okay, we have a personal relationship with our gods. They are the gods. When we keep them in our puja room, they become the head of our family. So even when we have any good thing, we first invoke our God. Even before marriage, we first go to Ganesha and give the card to Ganesha. So we have that one-to-one personal relationship. We've had till now that one-to-one relationship with our God. So when she told me they are the head of the family, I had that family bond with she had the Shiva and Parvati Mata's photograph in her mandir. So I formed that first bond happened when she said that she is the head of the family. So my bond with Shiva and Parvati Mata happened. Okay, they are the head of the family. They are my gods, and they are my family. So that's how I see it. So anybody touching my temple is touching my family. Uprooting the Shiva or drilling the Annapurna Mata is, oh, she's my mother, he's my father. How can you do this to him? I think this is the connect that we have lost. This devotion, this connect, this love. We have lost that, Dr. Melissa. Otherwise, it was impossible for those 100 Hindus to stand there and watch those demons uprooting our shivling. And I think it's very worrying. It's very painful. It's personally very, very painful. More painful than goons hitting on me. My father is, I get so pained when I see this. So even in the same thing in Kashi, I mean, I asked people from Kashi when I started writing that, come on, not even 100 of you could collect together and protect your deva. They just kept drilling your mother and your god. Do you think they are just murtis or vigrahas? No, they are pran. They are living gods. Even Article 21 of our constitution recognizes our vigrahas as, the living deities. They have their rights. Something which constitution says that they are living deities, they are living gods, but Hindus do not have that connect. What a loss, what a fall, and what a matter of shame for the whole Hindu society. That for them, a wide road or a wide corridor is more important than a 500-year-old temple and that vigraha which is being worshipped every day. So very worrying from the Hindu perspective. See, politicians will do what they have to do. They are morally bankrupt. They do not have any, connect with the gods. But what about the Hindu society? Is what is worrying, and this is what is happening. All this is happening because we have lost that personal connect with our God. And that is again, the education is the root cause. Content that Hindus are consuming from outside, vice versa, content they are the dharmic content they are consuming is too. The gap is too huge, too huge. The continuity is broken. There is a breach in the continuity now.
Absolutely. And do you feel that gap is widening?
Absolutely. Every single day, the gap is widening, of course, because see, there is no counter content which is there for the Hindus to consume. So of course it is. And on the contrary, they go out, they read newspaper, they watch movies, they watch news channels, they read books. So everything is anti-Hindu. Everything. So the content that they're consuming is very anti-Hindu. It's so biased. So very worrying situation.
Absolutely. But we certainly have some people watching today who are really thankful to you, Rituji, for everything you're doing. Rituji is a true fighter. No one stands for the truth, brave Rituji. She's one of the few voices on Kashi. So thank you very much, everyone joining again. Just another reminder to please like this video, please subscribe and follow both Rituji and myself on Twitter. Rituji, would you mind just reminding everyone of your Twitter handle one more time?
Yeah, so it's at the rate Ritu Rathaur, RITU,
Yeah, perfect. And it's why I set up this conversation is because Rituji, she does have such clarity of thought. If I ever have a bit of doubt about what I'm reading or learning about, I'll go to Rituji's timeline on Twitter, and there we have it. My mind is something, I have the crystal clarity that she does because she conveys it in such simple language and just how it is. She will call a spade a spade. So that's something I really admire in you, Rituji. So just to close off this session, and thank you so much again for joining today. I'm wondering, would you mind just sharing one more time a little bit about your father, about your parents generally, about how they inspired you, about how it was growing up under these very difficult circumstances and adversity. And ultimately, if you wouldn't mind adding a bit of a few of the facts about how the case was falsified the facts around the falsification, how it was proven in the end.
Okay, so Dr. Melissa, again, so I'll start off, with a very special incident which I always remember. So when I met my father after 8-9 months, and when I saw him, we were asked to reach Nagrota near Jammu, and that's when I saw my father and my little baby sister with me. She was almost an infant. Um, so see, I did not, I could see that some things are very wrong, and my father looks very, he was almost a skeleton because of the torture, and that's I remember then, but because my studies were getting harmed, so my mother sent me to my Taiji's house, my father's elder brother's house, to study. So for 1.5 years, I was displaced. I was neither with my mother nor with my father. Uh, just one or twice, my mother came to meet me and see me, and then she, finally in 1980, 81, I remember, small. Then she brought me back to Delhi with her, and that's when I met my father. So I remember I was waiting for him outside the jail, and I was, just waiting. We had to wait for 2 hours, and then only I was allowed to go inside. And when I went and then I saw my father after such a long gap, he just picked me up and hugged me so much, and he just told me one thing at that time: everything is going to be fine. And I remember that so very well. I think that's something, the hope that he gave at that time. So look at this: a man who has suffered acute torture under MI. Uh, he meets his daughter. He should be collapsed. He should be devastated. But the first thing he tells his little daughter is, everything is going to be fine. And that's how my parents, they kept the hope. And they kept giving us hope as well. And, like nowhere, they kept telling us everything is going to be fine and you're going to stand solid, study hard, become something. So as far as my father's case, Dr. Malisa, my father has written a book called The Price of Loyalty. It's available for online read on internet. If you will type The Price of Loyalty, free read will come up. I think that book in itself gives all the points of the cases. But I, being a daughter, I just, read some pages because for me it is very painful as a daughter to read that book. In fact, it's like I do not even discuss much about the case with him. But what happened, because see, earlier what happened, that army cases could not be fought in the civil court. So all the petitions that my mother filed in the court were dismissed because the court would say just one thing, that army, we do not interfere in army cases. Now, the Tambak Pai case, there were about 50 officers, innocent officers, who were court-martialed, who lost their jobs. So out of them, one of them was Major Rajwani. He was a judge himself. And he got court-martialed because he happened to question the military intelligence that what you are doing is all wrong. You people are, charging innocent men, so they charged him also. They took him also under the case, and he also got court-martial and lost his case. But then his name is Major Rajwani, and he kept fighting the case. He went to the court, in High Court, and he obtained an order from from a judge called Sunanda Bhandaresh, who gave a very iconic and legendary judgment. And she said, if army cases proven malified can be challenged in the civil court. It is based on that judgment that this whole group went to the court again, and they gave them all the evidence. See, when they charged my father, but this is the time period he aspired for Pakistan. My father was not even in Sambha. He was in his village. He produced, the panchayat came. He produced all the electricity bills he had signed. Our punch came. In villages you have a panchayat system. So my father is from Himachal. So all the villagers came with evidence that he was on a holiday for 1 month. He was there in the village. How can you even say that he went for spying or went for Sambha during this period of time? So all evidence was given. Then, the IB, Intelligence Bureau, had parallelly researched this, investigated this case. So at that time, the Joint Secretary of IB was Mr. V.K. Paul. Mr. V.K. Paul, who was an IPS officer, he had investigated this case and given a submission to even Rajiv Gandhi and to all governments that this is a totally fake case. How military intelligence has charged its own officers is completely fake, and these officers should be exonerated and their honor must be reinstalled. And he kept right. He was doing all this work. We were not in touch with him. Then it is one day we read an article by Mr. T.R. Rajeshwar Rao, who was the head of IB, who too wrote in favor of these army officers, and he had written an editorial in Times of India or Hindustan Times, where he had called upon that these army officers be exonerated. They are completely innocent, and this is a very wrong to have happened in the Indian army. Based on that, my father contacted Mr. Rajeshwar Rao and PK Kaul, and they helped us in the case, in giving the evidence to the courts. In 2001, the High Court gave the order in favor of these army officers, exonerating them, telling them it was a very good judgment, that this was a completely false case, and we ask army to give their honor back to these army officers. But sadly, instead of accepting this, the Indian government, that time Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Mr. Arun Jaitley was the law minister, they went to the court and filed an SLP in the Supreme Court. And Supreme Court, without even hearing, without even going into the merits of the case, dismissed the case, and overruled the High Court judgment. But the army officers continue to fight, such as their, will. They are still fighting. They are now the case is listed in the Supreme Court again under different cases, where we have asked that you produce counter evidence if these people have any fine. You produce any counter evidence which army is not able to produce. Everybody knows it's a false case. Even Navdeep Singh, who's a lawyer, army lawyer, has written so much about it that this is a false case, and he has requested Prime Minister, and when Nirmala he was the defense minister, he personally requested, tweeted that please do something about these army officers. They are in the last leg of their life and they deserve justice. So I can only pray for my father and for all the army officers who are now so old. I hope justice happens to them. Not as a daughter, but as a person, as a citizen of this country, I pray to God that may justice happen to these people. And I request everybody to please support these army officers and help them to get justice before they leave this world. They should have their honor back.
Absolutely. And I understand that the colonels, brigadiers, they were not arrested. It was only the captains. Is that correct?
So what happened? The military intelligence at that time. So my father has a story. He's written that in his book also, The Price of Loyalty. So everybody asked why did this happen? Why did the military do this? So my father has, my father has worked in intelligence also, and he was in Samba. So he says, at that time, the military intelligence head was General Garewal, Brigadier Garewal. He was a Sikh. He was Sardar. So he says that he was actually ISI mole himself. And before the Khalistani movement was to happen, their ISI planned to completely destroy the Northern Brigade of the Indian Army. That was their plan. But not for my mother, who went to the Supreme Court and asked her husband to be produced. And Supreme Court told the army, ordered the army to produce my father. Otherwise, they would have killed him. They would have killed, like they killed Havaldar Ram Swaroop, they would have killed him also. So along with him, Major Rana, there were many officers who were there. But they did not reach the torture phase. Before that was to happen, my mother got the case busted out and it came out in the open. So this is what happened. That's how my father feels that this was the movement prelude to the Khalistani movement, where they wanted to completely destroy the Northern Command and weaken the Indian army, and then go for the final kill. But then this is what happened. So he feels that this was all ISI which got this done. Otherwise, how is it possible that 50, 60, 80 officers of the same brigade are all spies? It's not possible. So their whole aim was to weaken the Indian army, the Northern Brigade. That sector was doing very good. The sector was very powerful. So this is what he feels and thinks, and he has written in detail about this in his book as well. So yes, to answer your question, so the maximum rank that they went after was a major.
Okay. Thank you. So yes, if people want to learn more about this, please do go and read Captain Rathaurji's book, The Price of Loyalty. Is that what it's called, Rituji? Yeah. And where can people find a copy of this? Did you just repeat one more time?
You can just go and type on Google The Price of Loyalty and free read Price of Loyalty, and the list will come up. It's hosted on a site called Child Planet, and it's all there. We are planning to republish the book. So hopefully again, but till then it's all available for an online read.
Thank you. And as you said earlier, you were incredibly proud of your father, and every right to be so. Sounds like a very inspiring family. You're very blessed to have been born into this family.
Very blessed. Yes. Very blessed to be my parents' daughter. I always say that I am my parents' daughter, and I wish I can be just 10% of the goddess Shakti that my mother has been, the anchor of our family.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much again, bahut dhanyawad Ritu ji, for joining
Thank
us
you
today.
so much, Dr. Melissa, for having me on your show. Really wonderful talking. I think for the first time, I really had a heart-to-heart talk with you. So thank you
Yes.
so much.
Of course, it's my pleasure. And thank you so much to all the people who joined in to watch. I can see some questions, asking me to, a bit of an update about Hiramba. So Hiramba Bal Ganesh Hiramba is now 11 months old. I think he's coming into the screen now. Here he is. He's 11 months old, and he's just at the point about walking, walking with a walker or walking holding onto one hand. Doing really well. He enjoys his swimming lessons every week. We only speak Hindi at home. We're trying to do as much in the mandir with him as possible. His attention span is increasing, so it's becoming more manageable now. But I've got some really good concrete recommendations from you, Ritu ji, about how to make sure I instill Hindu dharmic values
I'm
into
going to
him.
share some things with you. You do all that with him, and I'm sure you'll really grow up to be a wonderful boy, a civilizational fighter. He has those looks already in him.
First live appearance it is for him. It feels odd to speak to him in English. Sorry. Okay. Well, thank you again. And thank you everyone for joining. As I said, please like, subscribe, follow Ritu ji on Twitter. Bahut dhanyawad everyone. Namaste. Jai Shri Ram.
Namaste. Jai Shri Ram. Thank you.